This actually was one of the original designs of Skyrim. What is the experience of Skyrim? I bought this Conan action figure like years ago, just sitting on my desk. People would say, so what are we doing for the next Elder Scrolls? And I would point to the figure. Ironically enough, for the longest time, dual wielding was not in the game. And I would just look at the figure and he'd say, do it. You know you want it in the game. We start a lot with the world. So we design a lot, how does the world feel to enter it? It has to feel like a place that isn't all cold and snowy. It's a place you want to explore. So these are the initial kinds of designs that we do, as opposed to sitting down and saying, this is how every feature is going to work, and here's our blueprint. This is the game. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. We did this very early. This is like a tone setter. What is the tone to us? What is the tone internally when we look at the game? How are we going to speak to everybody outside? How does the game feel? It's a very bold image that we did early on. This epic reality of the world of Tamriel, a place that could be built today on Earth, but feels fantastical. And these special ruins, how they tell their stories. This is Alduin's Wall in the game. We would render this in full detail to say, like, well, okay, how do they tell their stories over time? When it came to dragons, we had a very short design. It's how do dragons feel? They feel like this. And then we had a team that worked on dragons, and they just kept iterating and adding things. And can we have them land? Do they fly? Do they get hurt? How do they roar? How do they talk? This is a better design for how dragons end up in the game than a giant list. This was a marketing image we did that does bring it all together. This is how the game feels.
In interviews, I'm often asked about specific elements in my games. Where did you get the idea for that character or that hardware? Why did you design that level in that way? And sometimes I can tell that the people who are asking these questions have spent a lot of time analyzing my games in very detailed fashion to search for the answers. But the riddle here is that the harder they look at the individual parts of the game itself, the further away they get from determining that answer. The reason for this is that my initial focus and my primary focus throughout development is not these individual elements of the game. When I'm creating a game, what I always try to envision, it's what I always think about, is the core element of fun within the game. And to do that, I imagine one thing, and that's the face of the player while he or she is experiencing the game, not any individual part of the game itself. And what the players will feel will be reflected on their face. And as an entertainer, I want them to be entertained.
When I was just designing Thief, I wouldn't even think about the audience because I didn't know what the impact of my decisions would be on an audience, because I never saw that path of an idea from my head to a gamer actually playing it. But as you sort of see the things you do and the things you say affecting an audience, you understand what people enjoy a little bit better. So therefore, you're thinking about what people enjoy, where when you get at the beginning, you don't have the tools to know what people are going to enjoy.
Right.
I think that's a big progression for us all at Irrational, that we've really thought about what is this experience going to be like for the person who picks up the controller and plays it, where before it was much more of an intellectualized process.
I had a Road to Damascus moment. I think it was about 2002. GTA 3 came out, and I popped it in the machine, and the credits started to roll. And I don't know if you remember it. There was this amazingly beautiful introduction with the logo coming in and out, dropping down, and coming across this really cool acid jazz. And I thought, fucking hell, I'm a dinosaur. I'm going to be extinct. I'm sitting there with G1, G2, G3 against the giants with my grid paper.
Right.
And thinking it from that sort of like old school D&D point of view. And then suddenly these guys are doing it from an entirely like audio visual experience. The whole thing.
The whole package.
The whole package. The actual experience is more important than the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah.
That was a real turning point for me.
The opening of BioShock was so much created as a experiential kind of thing that like going through it, what would somebody experience,
And I think that the experience of being a game designer has changed radically. Like when we were first getting into making games, they were essentially like digitized D&D, right? So it was fine to think like that, but the sophistication of the machines and the software is such that you have to think about the way it looks, the way it sounds, everything.
The very opening of System Shock 2, I remember, is a sort of character creation sequence.
And that was from Traveler.
Yeah,
right?
we were talking conceptually from Traveler, which was, like that you go through your military career. It was a pretty dry process, and we kept cutting it because we found out it wasn't emotionally satisfying.
Right.
Because you were in the military, but it didn't really feel like you were in the military.
Right.
You're doing something like that now. How do you sort of create that same experience and make decisions in that experience that affect your character growth? Do it in a way that felt much more like an experience that the user would go through rather than you would observe.
To give you an example, the robots, the machines. So we started designing those with a bit of a Killzone mindset. In Killzone we always had some like flying, more like war machines. If you look back at the designs, they have this sort of military style, and we played around with the idea that they could be sort of like these maybe broken war machines. I think the bigger problem with it was that it didn't work from an emotional perspective, like the emotional core was just completely off.
We came from Killzone. Basically all our designs were military, industrial machines. And that's sort of also the first avenue that we took. And we built a whole bunch of these things, sort of like alien, creepy machines, quite inhuman, quite monster-esque, grotesque even to certain points. And then we put it in game and it didn't really work. The whole idea is basically that you felt like a hunter, and the moment basically that you put a player against something that looks like a tank from Terminator, you start feeling more like a soldier in a war.
And what the team did then is they went back to a period in time where humans were not the dominant life form, the Stone Ages. And then, I don't remember who, somebody suggested like, yeah, maybe we should make like a dinosaur machine. And then a lot of people got really worried. They were like, robot dinosaurs, are you crazy?
Absurd.
That's never gonna work. But at the same time, we were sort of stuck, and I think this is great when you have an ideation. You can try things out, right? It's all about keeping it moving. Then you see the very early concept art that was created. That already shows you like, hey, this kind of works. We had some really rough models in 3D, and it kept working. So even though you could say that intellectually it didn't make any sense, like from an intellectual perspective, it doesn't make any sense. But emotionally, this completely started to click.
Set the concept art team to paint out basically what this could look like, and then suddenly basically we got these pictures of sort of primitive man basically hunting large robot brachiosaurs, and basically everybody's looking like it. It's like, this looks awesome. Like, I know it's silly, but I want to play this. So like, well, I guess we're making a robot dinosaur hunting game. You felt much more like a hunter because you could study them and read them and get a mental picture of this thing, instead of if it was really alien and strange, it would be really hard to develop that image.
I like to try to find images that may not look anything like the character. Maybe I find an image of a girl that doesn't have glasses on, but there's something about the way she's standing, or the way that her hair is resting, or something about her face, or where she's putting her hands, or something like that. And that starts to make me have that kind of feeling that I want to have for my final character, and I'll save that. I'll drop that into a folder, and I'll be like, there's something about this. I gotta look at it and figure out like why do I like that. And now this slide is a grab bag of some of the stuff that I found for May. These are the things that when I worked, like specifically, monitor on the left looks like this with even more pictures on it and stuff. And then my other monitor, that's where I'm animating, that's where I'm working. Because I just want to sort of be surrounded by things that remind me of her and make me just kind of make sure that I'm on track and that I'm hitting that character, that feeling for the character that I really want to get.
I said so at Tippett, I got to work on Enchanted. We did Pip the Chipmunk and stuff, but there was something about Amy Adams' performance in that was so sincere and, just innocent, but she's so appealing, but she's not, dumb or too young or anything, but you're like, oh, I want to spend time with her, And then same thing with Rapunzel and Tangled. I mean, you talk about I think the highest bar set yet for CG animation. Again, she's younger. She's kind of got this clumsy vibe to her, but you just want to spend time with her. And that's what I wanted to try to get with May inside this game.
Now, if that's all I did was explain technically what we had to do, I can guarantee we never would have done that picture, because artists don't respond to numbers or charts or even money. You've got to tell them why. You've got to help them understand and get them to start to believe in why you are doing what you're doing. So most of my lectures to our crew would be a kind of a combination, maybe 10% information, 90% inspiration, trying to get them encouraged to actually go and do this. On the outside, he's a really confident guy, but somewhere deep inside, he's insecure. After that, the gun went off and we just went running full speed to the finish line.